Pour yourself a drink, or maybe don't, because we are about to dive into one of the most fascinating chronicles of human history, our long, complicated relationship with alcohol. Across the ages, from ancient Mesopotamia to today's trend of dry January, alcohol has been everything: a sacred gift, a medicine, a social lubricant, an economic powerhouse, and, for some, a personal downfall. But here's the twist: after millennia of raising our glasses, humanity might finally be sobering up. The world is drinking less alcohol, and this trend is reshaping culture, industries, and personal habits alike. To understand how we got here, let's uncork the story of alcohol through history, from its divine origins to the modern health-conscious era. Long before happy hours and prohibition laws, alcohol was revered as a divine gift. The first records of alcoholic beverages come from around 10,000 BCE in India, where fermented rice, honey, and fruit were used to create what can only be described as ancient mead. Meanwhile, in Mesopotamia, the Sumerians became the OG beer enthusiasts, brewing barley-based ales by 4000 BCE. They even had a goddess of brewing, Ninkasi, and left us with the world's first beer recipe. Why was alcohol so popular? For one, it was safer than water in ancient times, when sanitation was non-existent. Drinking alcohol was often a matter of survival. Beyond that, it was a gateway to the divine. Across ancient cultures, from the Greeks worshipping Dionysus to the Egyptians toasting Osiris, alcohol was seen as a sacred elixir that connected mortals to gods. But let's not romanticize too much. Early beer probably tasted like soggy bread mixed with sour milk, far from today's craft IPAs. Still, humans didn't mind. By 2000 BCE, Babylonian taverns were booming, complete with rules against overcharging for drinks. Yes, even back then. The Greeks and Romans took alcohol culture to the next level. For the Greeks, wine wasn't just a drink, it was a cultural cornerstone. The Symposium, a drinking party where philosophers debated everything from politics to the meaning of life, became legendary. But even they believed in moderation. The Greek poet Eubulus quipped, "3 bowls of wine do I mix, the first for health, the second for love, and the third for sleep. After that, fools drink." The Romans, on the other hand, preferred excess. Bacchanalia, wild festivals in honor of Bacchus, the Roman god of wine, became so debauched that they were eventually banned. Yet alcohol was also practical. It was used medicinally, preserved food, and, of course, fueled their armies. However, not all classical civilizations embraced alcohol. Islamic societies, following the rise of Islam in the 7th century, prohibited alcohol altogether. This created a stark divide between drinking and non-drinking cultures, one that persists to this day. Fast forward to the Middle Ages, and Europe was swimming in alcohol. Monasteries became the epicenters of brewing, creating some of the finest beers and wines of the time. Monks weren't just praying, they were perfecting the art of fermentation. Saint Benedict's rule, written in the 6th century, even allowed monks to drink a daily ration of beer or wine. Alehouses became social hubs, where everyone from peasants to kings would gather. However, drinking wasn't just about pleasure, it was necessity. Water was often unsafe, so people drank small beer, low-alcohol beer, throughout the day to stay hydrated. But the tide began to turn. The temperance movement in the late medieval period saw some religious groups advocating sobriety, laying the groundwork for future clashes over alcohol consumption. The age of exploration, 15th to 17th centuries, turned alcohol into a global commodity. Europeans introduced distilled spirits like rum and brandy to the Americas, Africa, and Asia, while Native Americans shared fermented corn beverages and other regional specialties. However, this era wasn't all toasts and cheers. Alcohol became entangled with darker chapters of history, such as the Atlantic slave trade. Rum was a key commodity in the infamous triangular trade, where it was exchanged for slaves and other goods. By the 18th century, Britain was in the grips of the gin press, where cheap, potent gin flooded London's streets. "Drunk for a penny, dead drunk for two" became the grim slogan of the time. Alcohol abuse skyrocketed, prompting early attempts at regulation. The Industrial Revolution didn't just change how we worked, it changed how we drank. Mass production made alcohol cheaper and more widely available. But it also led to increased concerns about public drunkenness and alcoholism. This gave rise to the temperance movement, which gained traction in the 19th century. Spearheaded by groups like the Women's Christian Temperance Union, the movement pushed for moderation or outright abstinence. Their efforts culminated in one of the most infamous periods of alcohol history, Prohibition, 1920 to 1933, in the United States. For 13 years, alcohol was banned, but not really. Bootlegging, speakeasies, and organized crime thrived. Prohibition was a spectacular failure, and by 1933, Americans were drinking legally again. Globally, alcohol consumption rebounded after World War II, as post-war prosperity fueled social drinking. By the 1980s and 90s, cocktail culture was booming, and beer and wine became staples of Western dining. When it comes to alcohol, it's not just about clinking glasses, it's about clinking cash registers. Alcohol is a financial juggernaut, fueling economies, creating jobs, and generating tax revenue that governments rely on. But as global drinking trends shift, the numbers behind the booze business are starting to look less frothy. Let's dive into the wild world of alcohol economics and explore how this multi-trillion-dollar industry is evolving. The global alcohol market was valued at a staggering $1.57 trillion in 2023 and was projected to grow at a compound annual growth rate, CAGR, of 4.5% through 2030. To put that in perspective, that's bigger than the GDP of many countries, including Spain and Australia. Times Beer, the king of the alcohol industry, beer accounts for about 40% of global sales. Brands like InBev, Heineken, and Carlsberg dominate, with Budweiser alone raking in billions annually. Times Wine makes up around 30% of the market, driven by European countries like France, Italy, and Spain. The US is also a major consumer, with the wine market valued at $88 billion in 2023. Times Spirits, high-margin products like whiskey, vodka, and tequila account for approximately 25% of global sales, led by brands like Diageo, Pernod Ricard, and Bacardi. Times Non-Alcoholic Beverages, a small but rapidly growing segment, non-alcoholic beers and spirits are expected to reach a market value of $43 billion by 2030, growing at a CAGR of over 8%. Governments love alcohol, not for the buzz, but for the taxes. Alcohol taxes are a significant source of revenue, particularly in developed nations. Times the US collected over $10 billion in federal alcohol excise taxes in 2022. Add in state taxes, and the number skyrockets. Times in the European Union, alcohol taxes contribute about €25 billion annually to government coffers. Times globally, alcohol excise taxes generate over $250 billion each year. While alcohol taxes are a financial boon, the flip side is the economic cost of alcohol-related harm. According to the World Health Organization, WHO, alcohol misuse costs the global economy $3 trillion annually in healthcare expenses, lost productivity, and social harm, nearly 2.4% of global GDP. The alcohol industry isn't just about drinks, it's about livelihoods. From farmers to factory workers to bartenders, the industry supports millions of jobs worldwide. Times Agriculture, farmers grow the grains, grapes, and sugarcane that form the backbone of alcohol production. The wine industry alone supports over 2.4 million vineyard workers globally. Times Manufacturing, breweries and distilleries employ millions, with InBev boosting over 169,000 employees worldwide. Times Hospitality, bars, restaurants, and hotels rely heavily on alcohol sales, with the industry accounting for 1 in 10 jobs globally in the food and beverage sector. But as drinking declines in some regions, particularly among younger generations, the hospitality sector is feeling the pinch. The decline in global alcohol consumption isn't just reshaping drinking habits, it's creating entirely new industries. Enter the sober economy, where alcohol-free beverages are stealing the spotlight. The global market for non-alcoholic beer and spirits is expected to grow to $43 billion by 2030, driven by health-conscious consumers. Brands like Seedlip, a non-alcoholic spirit, and Heineken 0.0 are leading the charge, with sales increasing by over 30% annually in some regions. In the US, sales of non-alcoholic drinks jumped by 116% between 2021 and 2023, a clear signal of shifting preferences. When it comes to alcohol, India has a unique, often contradictory story. From ancient Vedic hymns praising Soma as the drink of the gods to modern debates over prohibition, India's relationship with alcohol is as diverse and spicy as its cuisine. But behind the cultural quirks lies a massive financial machine, an industry worth billions, grappling with shifting consumer tastes, government regulations, and the occasional moral policing. Alcohol has been a part of Indian culture since the Vedic period, 1500 to 500 BCE. The Rig Veda sings praises to Soma, a divine, possibly hallucinogenic drink consumed by gods and priests. If Soma were around today, it would probably be marketed as organic, plant-based, gluten-free nectar for enlightenment. Fast forward to the Mauryan era, where Emperor Chandragupta's advisor Chanakya warned against excessive drinking, but not before taxing it heavily. Even then, booze was a revenue spinner. By the Mughal period, India was bubbling with variety: toddy, fermented palm sap, arak, distilled spirits, and plenty of wine for the royalty. The Mughals were no strangers to indulgence, with Emperor Jahangir's fondness for wine, and everything else, becoming legendary. Enter the British, who brought their love for beer, whiskey, and a good gin and tonic to ward off malaria, their excuse, not ours. The first breweries in India, like Kasauli Brewery, established in 1820, laid the foundation for India's beer industry. Times Trivia Alert: did you know that India Pale Ale, IPA, now a global beer favorite, was created specifically for British soldiers in India? Apparently, surviving the Indian summer needed some extra hops. The British also formalized alcohol taxes, creating a steady revenue stream. By the time they left, alcohol consumption was firmly entrenched, though often viewed through the lens of morality and colonial elitism. After 1947, alcohol became a divisive topic. On one hand, Mahatma Gandhi called alcohol a curse and advocated for prohibition. On the other, the new government needed money, and alcohol taxes were too lucrative to ignore. Thus began India's love-hate relationship with booze. The Indian alcohol market is valued at over 4.3 lakh rupees crore, $52 billion, and is projected to grow at a CAGR of 6.8% from 2023 to 2030. That's faster than your drunk uncle's dance moves at a wedding. India's younger generations are drinking less, or at least differently. Health-conscious millennials and Gen Z are trading whiskey shots for green smoothies and kombucha. A 2022 survey found that 29% of urban Indians aged 18 to 25 abstain from alcohol entirely. 1. Health and fitness: with gyms and yoga studios on every corner, beer bellies are out, and six-packs are in. 2. Non-alcoholic options: the Indian market for zero-alcohol beer, like Kingfisher Radler, is growing at 12% annually. 3. Social media pressure: nobody wants a sloppy drunk video to go viral. The alcohol industry isn't taking this lying down. Companies are pivoting to meet changing consumer demands, launching low-alcohol and zero-proof products. Brands like Heineken 0.0 and Seedlip, a non-alcoholic spirit, are leading the charge. Meanwhile, regions with strong drinking cultures, like Europe, are adapting slowly. Wine and beer remain cultural staples, but even there, health-conscious trends are making waves. Will humanity ever give up alcohol entirely? Probably not. Its role in culture, ritual, and celebration is deeply ingrained. However, the way we consume it is undoubtedly changing. As we continue to prioritize health, sustainability, and mindful living, alcohol may become more of an occasional indulgence than a daily habit. The rise of artificial intelligence, ironically, the only thing here that can't drink, could even lead to new innovations in alcohol-free beverages that replicate the taste, smell, and social buzz of traditional drinks. From sacred brews to global trade, from prohibition to mocktails, alcohol's story is one of constant evolution. And now, as we sip more mindfully, or skip entirely, we are writing the next chapter of this ancient tale. Whether you are toasting with a glass of vintage wine or sparkling water, one thing is clear: our relationship with alcohol will always be complex, spirited, and worth reflecting on. Here's to the past, present, and future of humanity's love-hate affair with booze. Cheers, or not.